hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. And just like to start out by apologizing for Monday. We were all set to go for a show, but there was a pretty nasty windstorm blew through southern Ontario, and believe that 1/5 of the province was knocked out. The electricity was knocked out. My power remained on, but my transmission tower for my internet is exactly 6 kilometers away, and it was in a zone that was unpowered until yesterday evening. So you can imagine my frustration with that situation. Regardless of that, we're back on now. I'm not going to be flippant about the fact that it's Wednesday and make a joke about it, because we have a very serious show today. We have some amazing reporting by my lovely and talented co-host, Ms. Kerri Barber. Good morning, Kerri. How are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, Andy. I'm glad to be back on the air, and I too want to apologize because I didn't know about this story. I was engaged in other things, and this was brought to my attention. So, Pamela, thank you so much for this. I think I would like to think that I'm like most of the country where this didn't really pop up on my radar. There was, COVID, election, all of these things. And then I was worried about local elections. So, Pamela, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, because I remember a blip on the radar about, Flint, Michigan, and everything that was going on there. And, oh, by the way, there are hundreds of cities across the country who are facing the same issue. So this particular issue kind of got lumped in with all of that, right? So it's an abstract idea that there are hundreds of cities just like Flint, and it sucks, and that's too bad. So there are new developments that I want to talk about, and I am still doing research on this. I was telling Andy that, while I was waiting to join up, that I was pulling information down. Some of it is not necessarily vetted, but I do want to share with you some of it that I found that relates to this particular story. And it is complex. It's confusing. I'll try to go slow. And if you think that any of the information I'm presenting or any of the speculations that we're making here are way off base, join in. We are live. So this is part of that global conversation that we want to have. And this it affects you wherever you are. So, weigh in. So, oh boy. So just to back up a little bit, this story concerns a little tiny town in South Carolina called Denmark, like, the country, but it's Denmark, South Carolina. Beautiful little location, tiny little area. There's about 3,000 residents. It fits neatly into a gerrymandered district for Representative Jim Clyburn, who's in Congress. And then it has 2 Republican senators, Tim Scott and, Lady G, Lindsey Graham, is also the senator representing this. So keep those people in mind, because silence is complicity. Right? So when you step up to run for an office, and it doesn't matter if it's dog catcher, senator, or president, your role is representing the people. You are a servant, civil servant of the people. You are not an anointed God, right? So when you are quiet about an issue where your own residents have their lives threatened, that's kind of a problem. So that is the position I'm going to take with Jim Clyburn, with Lady G, and Tim Scott. Okay, so just so we're fair on that, to me, this is a bipartisan issue. And especially we're going to get into a conversation about morality in this particular district. Where do your morals fall? And that's going to be important later. So here's the gist of the story. And I'm not going to do this well. We invited Bakari Sellers on the show this morning. Hopefully he gets time out of his schedule to join us. May happen. We'll all be delighted and surprised. But he is integral to this story, and he was a former representative. He lives in Denmark, South Carolina, so he is so close to this and can articulate the issues very well. He's also leading a class action lawsuit because of this issue, and I'm going to come back to that, why they're doing a class action lawsuit, right? So in this little town of Denmark, like most cities across the country, we have not invested in our infrastructure. So you have these 50, 100-year-old pipes that are bringing municipal water in that, you know, they're metal pipes. They're going to have lead in them. They're going to have other contaminants, algae growth, things like this. So when we don't invest in our infrastructure, and we call that socialism, we don't use public money for public good, then the problem gets worse and worse and worse. And we just kick the can down the road. So when we keep saying smaller government, and we mean federal and local, this is the natural result. Okay, so when I left Illinois, there was this little tiny municipality just northwest of me where one of my friends lives. They had the same issue with their water, and there was no funding. And it came to a point where they were having so many boil orders. This is where there's contaminant in the water, that it was becoming a liability issue where even the state was like, okay, guys, you got to do it. So what happened is they passed that cost off to the residents. So she is paying 10 times for her water bill every month compared to what I was paying. So they put that cost off on the people rather than the shared cost and responsibility at a state and federal level. She paid just as much taxes as I did, state, local, and federal, but now she was paying more, right? So somebody always pays. And that is the situation that we're seeing across the country. When we say smaller government, don't invest those funds, bootstraps. What we're saying is we're going to defer that cost to the people, the individual residents, and make them pay for it, because who gives a shit about them, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's also just mind-numbing that when you think about it, in a neoliberal society that we have, that the reason that these decisions ultimately are made, and you just have to follow the money, is that somebody is making money hand over fist in a position that they get to do that. And when these decisions happen, you turn around and who pays for that, right? In either financial costs or health costs.
Oh, that's absolutely right. So same thing goes to, we're in a global pandemic, and we have effectively said to our national population, you're on your own, because we don't have a national health care program. It's not e pluribus unum, it's you're on your own. So it's that same mentality, that neoliberal mentality, where we must drive towards corporate profits. We privatize the profits, and all the risk and all the costs and all the death and misery must go to the public. Right. So this is what this story is to me. And we have covered extensively the Flint issue. And we have this 3-part series that we did on the ETO cover up in Chicago. And to Andy, to your point, we keep seeing this over and over and over again. It's not red team, blue team. It's a bipartisan effort to keep this quiet and keep the profits rolling, right? So in Flint, the lesson that we learned there was you had this if you've ever been to Flint, aside from the smell and what's going on there because of the chemical issues, it's beautiful. It's right along the river. It's an ideal location. Unfortunately, there were poor people and Black people, people of color who happen to inhabit it. So we got to get rid of them. And how do we do that? right? We make sure that they're getting sick and we don't do anything about it. And then we accelerate by law the foreclosure process so that if they don't pay their water bill, and they've got one of the highest water bills in the entire country, if they don't pay their water bill, that is grounds for foreclosure. And we fast track the foreclosure process and allow people from all over the country, investors, to buy those homes so that we get rid of the undesirables, the unwashed masses. And when I say low income people in Flint, I'm talking about the national median average. We're not talking about people who are making $10,000 and $12,000 a year. We're talking about $32,000 to $55,000. That is the median income for the entire country. So please don't think that people in Flint are unlike you and I. They're exactly like us, right? I live in a state that has a median income of about $22,000 to $35,000, the entire state. Okay, so put that in context. So that was the lesson we were supposed to learn from Flint. We saw Obama go in there in 2016 and promise them, I will not abandon you. And then he completely gaslit them with that drink of water. And then that was all we heard, right? And then we had some bit of action to hold people accountable from a legal standpoint. And what happened? It disappeared. It's gone, right? It's performative. And then in the Chicago issue, and I posted a link, it's a 3-part series. It's very complex. It's a long read, but I tried to include a really nice infographic so you could see the timeline of what was happening. Here we had in Chicago, ethylene oxide, a gas was killing people, giving people cancer, outright killing them. And you had one state representative who he himself had had cancer and survived it, trying to help people, happened to be a Republican. But what happened? The Democrats in Illinois got together to protect one of their own to cover it up. So in essence, you had a wealthy neighborhood to the south. They got their ethylene oxide plant shut down. In the north, people of color, Lake County and Waukegan, it's still in operation. And in fact, the company that was poisoning people during the COVID crisis, they were lauded because they were giving out mass PPE to anyone who wanted. We're still going to kill you, but here's some PPE for you, right? So, and this is still going on in Chicago right now, today. So all of these things go together with the story about Denmark. So in Denmark, around 2009, 2010, they were having problems. People were complaining about their water, the smell, they were not feeling well. The water was like a reddish color. This is the lead and all of the stuff pouring into the water. So they complained. Somebody somewhere made the decision to put an additive into the water. Remember, this is 2009, 2010. They added something called halocene. So when you look up halocene is a pesticide that is used in hot tubs and pools to get rid of algae and to get rid of certain sediments. It is not approved for human consumption. But what were they doing? They were adding this to the municipal water supply for the town of Denmark, South Carolina. This is a fact. This is not alleged. This is a fact. So in the links that I posted this morning, you'll see all of the information that I'm looking at with the exception of the financials, and we can talk about that. So Andy, first graphic, you want to put that up? This is the one from a private corporation who has decided to weigh in on the halocene additive. Is that up there? Okay. So you can see on this particular graphic, this is a private for-profit company, and their business is water and filtration. And even they're going, what the fuck? No. And here's what was startling to me. Here's this company who is trying to be responsible, who for whatever reason, I'm going to assume that they were so shocked and outraged by this, they decided to issue a public statement that they did not have to do. As of this morning, I was on the phone with Jim Clyburn's office and the two senators, and I cannot find a public statement from any of them regarding this issue. But here I was able to find a private company that had nothing to do with this, issuing a statement going, this is wrong. Okay, so when it comes to politics on Denmark, I found Tom Steyer when he was running for president, who visited Denmark and was so appalled, so egregiously appalled. I found Bernie Sanders, who went and handed out water and talked to the residents. I didn't find anything after that. So here again, we have politicians being performative, and the issue still continues. Remember, Tom Steyer and Bernie Sanders went there almost 2 years ago. It's 2020, and this is still going on there, okay? Nobody's been held accountable. I can't find an arrest record. I can't find any type of legal ramifications or accountability on any of this. If you found it and I didn't, kudos, post it, let's talk about it. I would love to see something. But instead, we are left with a company who is so outraged by what is happening, they were moved to put this statement on their website. That's amazing to me. So, so on this graphic here, I want you to recognize, so 2 years ago, CNN broke the story because of the political campaigns and things that was going on. But in this particular graphic, I think what's important here is we have, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep turning away from the camera. I know it's rude, but I want to make sure that I get this information right. So when this issue got bubbled up, because CNN covered it because Tom Steyer and Bernie Sanders were campaigning through there, the municipalities said, oh, wait, it's not us. We left this to an organization that has national certifications, right? Everyone's familiar with Underwriter Labs, because when you plug in something electronic, it's certified by Underwriter Labs. This organization is very similar. They work with chemicals and things like this. So what the municipality was saying was, this certification company said that it was okay, so we are absolved of it. And when you go to this certification company, this NSF, they on their website say we adhere to the policies and regulations required by the FDA, right? So here we've got passing the buck on accountability. But when it comes to somebody who is in charge of your roads, your water, security, the buck stops there, right? You can't put it off on, oh, we used a certification company to do this. Aren't you responsible for the lives in your care, right? So Andy, you want to put up real quick the FDA one. This is the long one with a red banner on the side. So in the links, again, I put all the links to the information on here. So one of the things that I did is I went and looked up this regulation that they referenced here, the Chapter 40, 149.
I'm sorry, Kerri, which graphic is it?
This is the US EPA graphic.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second. I got the wrong one up there.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I suck.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. This is technically our Monday, so it's all fine. We're all good. So what I did was I went and looked at the EPA regulations. They kept referencing this Title 40, 149.17. So I pulled up those regulations, EPA testing, and what is allowable. So this is where it gets a little complicated. In the ETO issue in Chicago, you had Illinois saying we deferred to the Illinois EPA, which they're regional organizations. And the Illinois EPA said that this was totally okay, and they're doing the testing and everything like this. So you have in that case, the state deferring to the EPA in that region, and each one's blaming each other, right? And nothing gets done. Years drag on. Same thing seems to be happening with the Denmark case. In Denmark, with the municipality saying, we relied on the information that was provided to us by the Berry Company and this certification lab. So one of the other links that I pulled up, and I don't have a graphic for this, is the internet is an amazing, awesome place. Nothing is ever gone. So I was able to find Berry Systems' cell sheet on halocene. And so I posted a link to it. It's an amazing work of art circa 1980s. It's a cell sheet about halocene and what a wonderful thing it is for municipal drinking water. And in this entire cell sheet, there is no reference to the EPA saying that this particular chemical is not suitable for human consumption, that it is caustic and toxic. The only reference on their cell sheet is a little line that says, when you put this stuff in, you got to wait 10 minutes, otherwise it'll eat your hand. Don't do your testing. That's it. There is no reference to the EPA. There's no reference to testing. There's no reference to this certification company whatsoever. None. So go out and take a look at that particular cell sheet that they themselves published and used to sell this chemical to a municipality just like Denmark, South Carolina, right? So
it's going to be very interesting to see where the money trail leads. I'm fascinated to see how that's going to work.
Oh, but wait, there's more. So yeah, I did. Literally, it was 10 minutes finding, and I did find a little bit of a money trail, so I will get into that. But with this graphic on the EPA, this is the EPA's findings on halocene and related chemicals. They list it as a pesticide because of the way that it works in killing organisms, right? So they themselves, the EPA, in their very nice way, say it is so caustic and so harmful, we could not do human trials with it. So instead, we used rats and rabbits. And what they published is what happened to rats and rabbits, either through airborne exposure, through water, through food. They went through multiple tests, right? That is the role of the EPA, not this laboratory who said that they were working with the EPA and adherence to those guidelines, right? So it's the EPA. This is what the EPA does. They do the testing and the vetting. And if you recall, just a real quick history lesson, the reason the EPA came about is because we had cosmetics manufacturers who were using belladonna and other harmful poisons in their cosmetics, and people were dying. So we decided, well, we should have a group of scientists who actually go through these cosmetics that people use to make sure it doesn't kill them. And that is where the EPA came from. This is us, e pluribus unum, getting together saying, yeah, let's have some group of experts do some science and protect the consumer. And I got to tell you, in my career working as a consultant for pharmaceutical companies, for various companies for consumer goods, the EPA standards is the gold standard worldwide. So what you will see in regulatory documents when it comes to vetting of medications, cosmetics, lotions, shampoos, all of the products that you use that touch your skin that you might come in contact with, around the world in different countries, from France to Denmark to the UK, everywhere they say, if the US EPA approves this, we're good. Right? So that is the purpose of the EPA. So here we have very clearly the EPA saying, don't use this shit on people. It's not for consumption. So what did they do? This municipality used it on people. Not for a year, not one-time accident, every month for 10 years. 10 years. So I am not a lawyer. I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. I'm just a regular person. I'm a mom, wife, family member. If someone told me that they had been deliberately putting a chemical that the EPA has said is toxic and caustic and will cause death, and they were putting that in something that one of my family members was eating, that to me is criminal. So my first reaction is to grab a baseball bat, but cooler heads hopefully prevail, and you go to the justice system.
I thought you didn't like baseball.
I like baseball bats.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got confused there. We're good.
Yeah, okay. So I cannot believe this blows my mind that for 10 years, this has totally been okay. And when the story broke in 2009, 2010, and again 2 years ago, nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been held accountable. No apology. All you have over and over and over are these officials saying, well, we listen to them. No, you're responsible. That is criminal negligence. I don't know how else to see it. But Andy, how many times have we had a lawyer and attorney? Ron Kuby came on and told us justice is not for you if you can't afford it. I'm paraphrasing.
Exactly. And don't expect, justice to prevail if you're getting close to the lunch hour. Right? That feels to me like what is actually happening to these poor people. And none of them have the finances, the wherewithal to actually bring a lawsuit. So what I was happy to see was Bakari Sellers. I'm going back to Bakari. He was a state representative. He actually lives in Denmark. He and his law firm have organized a class action lawsuit. And there's video out there. I'll post the article. There's video out there of him inviting residents to the lawsuit. And these residents, I love them. Their initial pushback on a class action lawsuit was, well, we don't want to bankrupt our own town. So, we don't want to have Denmark be bankrupted, so now we lose all our city services. So here are people who are committed to community. They're committed to each other, and all they want is clean drinking water. How dare they, right? So, but their first concern is, we don't want to bankrupt each other in our community. We love our town. We love each other. So in the video, Mr. Sellers talks about, well, we're going to bring in the people who we believe are responsible. So I imagine, I haven't seen the filing, and I hope to find that it's publicly available, that anytime somebody files a lawsuit, that is publicly available information, free speech. It's part of transparency. So even with Trump and his lawyers going from state to state to state, you as a citizen can request that transcript, can request the filing. And in the filing, you'll see the argument being made by the plaintiff, the person who's complaining, what they're actually upset about and where it applies to law. So they have to say, I'm really mad about this, and here is the law that I believe is broken, and here is how this person, entity, individual broke this particular law in this very specific way. Right? And then the person or entity that you're suing has a chance to respond. So you can pull all of that information. So I don't have that yet for this class action suit. I hope to get it. I did reach out to Mr. Sellers and ask for a copy of it, because I think in this case, when it comes to
The legal questions, are they going state or are they going federal on this one? The way that he says it in this video clip is they have framed their complaint in such a way that it is not necessarily going after Denmark, South Carolina, but still holding accountable the corporations and people that made this decision. So, Andy, why would they need to file a class action lawsuit?
Well, in the United States, a human right isn't a right unless it's being able to be held up in court, right? Like, I mean, that's how everything works in that specific democracy, right? You have to prove that people have the right to live, right, through the court system as opposed to being killed by corporations.
You've absolutely been paying attention. Wow. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wait,
So,
don't sound so surprised, will you? Come on.
Yeah. Good morning, Dave. Dave asked, do you monitor the YouTube chat stream? When it comes through, yes. So I see your comments. Good morning, Dave Gutowski. And his comment is, that's why internet freedom exists. No more corporate socialism. Perfect example. So to get back to your point, Andy, you're right. We have human rights and legal rights in name only, right? So what is supposed to happen is the checks and balances supposed to kick in. So you have your county state's attorney and then your state's legal authority. So you remember Kamala Harris, she was the top cop. She was supposed to prosecute wrongdoers, but she let Wells Fargo go and a bunch of other fraudulent entities, but she was real big on prosecuting people. So the state's attorney is supposed to take the evidence, look at it, and then file charges if there is enough evidence there. In this case, we don't have a group saying it didn't happen. We have a group saying absolutely it happened. We did it. The state's attorney general has not filed charges that I could find, that I could see anywhere, not in their court system, not anywhere. So you would think you would go to the sheriff, to the state level attorney general. So here's what I found this morning. And again, I have not spent hours and days on this story, so I apologize for that. But in the little bit that I did find in the short amount of time, in the state's attorney's website, he has this really nice video circa 2014. If you recall, that's when marriage equality was coming into national legal standing. So he has this really nice video of himself on Fox News talking about how he is more than willing to violate federal law based on his own moral grounds. So he was saying that because me as a person, I don't feel like marriage equality is in line with my moral values, I am more than willing to violate federal law. And he's got that front and center, right? So this is your top cop in South Carolina fully advocating to not adhere to federal law, right? That civil rights issue.
Don't you just love it when politicians and municipal officials cherry pick excerpts out of the Bible to justify their prejudices?
Yeah, there's nothing in the Bible that talks about same-sex marriage. Zero. Yeah, so I'm not sure where he's getting that from. I'm assuming he's a Christian, maybe not. Maybe his Bible or his holy book says this, so I can't speak for him on that. But what I did find that was interesting is he's got that on there, but nowhere on there was there anything about holding people accountable or any legal action, investigation on behalf of Denmark, South Carolina. If you're aware of it, let me know. I'm still waiting for confirmation from his office on that. Just like Jim Clyburn and Lindsey Graham's office, nothing. I got nothing. So I am hoping that that I've missed it. I'm hoping that there's some sense of humanity in any of these people, especially a civil rights leader. Where is it? It's not there. So because you don't have the checks and balances and the legal help that you're supposed to have under your state constitution, you have to go to a civil filing. And that is the reason for a class action suit. So an individual who has standing, who has been harmed, who can demonstrate illness, sickness, whatever, or just, I pay my water bill and you've been poisoning it, they could file their own civil lawsuit if the criminal avenue has been closed to them. And it looks like for 10 years, it has been closed, right? So they could file it, but it's going to start with $60,000. Guaranteed off the top. And I don't care if you have a wonderful lawyer who's only charging $150, $200 an hour, $60,000. That's what it costs, right? And if we're talking about people across the country who can't afford $500 for an unplanned issue month to month, right? So a civil case is a bunch of people joining together, sharing that burden, and all of them going together to represent the whole in this case. And in this case, it's Mr. Sellers' law firm who is or has filed on their behalf. So when your checks and balances at the state constitution level fail, all you have is civil filing. That's it. That's it. So,
and it's this gets legs, quote unquote, by people getting enraged by it, right? This is, and when we talk about why this happens and what the difference is between, the sounding board that was Flint when that all happened and why this is basically just been kept quiet for the most part, for as long as the story's been going on, right? It's, again, we look at, who's getting paid off to do this, right? And can this be used as a political tool, to blame minorities or whatever, in that political environment? And the answer is no, right? And so if you don't believe that this is a story, that this isn't happening, right? Those people that live in Flint, like we're moving on to about 6 years since this story first came out, and those people are still dealing with unfit water, right? All of that happened, and everything that was going on with that is still going on. Right? These are huge stories. These are huge revelations that have to go out there, but you can't depend on mainstream media because it doesn't fit the elitist narrative that we want people to see, or that they want people to see, right? And that's very troubling.
Well, yeah. So in corporate media's defense, you did have CNN talk about it 2 years ago. I couldn't find anything sooner, but in their defense, and I hate to defend corporate media, nothing new has happened, really. So from when they broke the story because of Tom Steyer and Bernie Sanders, very little movement on this at all, other than now you have this class action lawsuit brewing, right? So this is where it's totally depressing, because on the backdrop we still have this pandemic, and from the right we hear, and I just had this conversation with a batshit crazy woman who's literally named Karen, where she was trying to say, well, people die every day. People die every day. What's the big deal? And my response is, who hurt you so badly that you no longer have any empathy or sense of humanity to think that way. We have 250,000 people who died and didn't need to. And that's just in this country. They did not need to die, right? So it's an abstract number. And I think that's the problem people have.
We have the military-industrial complex to thank for acceptable losses.
Right, yeah. So you and I were talking before we started streaming, and this is part of why we were late. Andy and I always get in these conversations, which are, to me, really interesting. But we brought up the point, and we discussed it. Remember 9/11, never forget. And we lost about 3,000 people, right? My own family member, my dad was at the Pentagon that day. I remember it, all of it. And we went to war and killed 1 million people over it, wrong country, but it's neither here nor there. With the pandemic, it is not enough to even get a sniff for a national health care plan from people in Congress who today are getting platinum level insurance coverage on your dime. We don't call that socialism. We only call it socialism when we talk about extending care to all of us with our public money, right? So 250,000 people, regular folks, it's totally okay that those people die. But the 3,000 on 9/11, that's justification to go to war. So I was a little flip when I made this comment before we went on the air, but it's kind of true. If the people of Denmark, South Carolina declare war on North Carolina, they'll get their new water supply. I guarantee it. So that's all you need to do, apparently, is declare war on somebody. Say this isn't just. Pick somebody. Doesn't even have to be the right person. Just pick somebody, declare war, and then you just start arming up. And even if it's performative, do your little Civil War reenactment, whatever. But just you're gonna get the news media, and maybe you'll get some support, right? So you got to go to war, and that is how you're going to get at least some funding. I mean, this is a town of 3,000 people. It's much smaller than Flint. It can't be that expensive to replace their water supply. But you see these news stories where people have to drive 29 miles to get water, or they have to spend their own money on top of paying their water bill to go get drinkable water. Not to mention the health issues and everything else that they have had to bear the cost for themselves.
And also not to mention the fact that if they don't pay their water bill, it's a reason for them to get evicted. Right?
Well, and that's one of the things that I was trying to track down. I mean, is this another redistribution of wealth, right? Like we saw in Flint. In Flint, we want those people out of there, and we want to own their properties and resell them and profit from them because, at a certain point, toxic capitalism has to start eating itself. So this is where regulations come in, and that's all progressivism is can we get some meaningful regulation? So I thought that too. In South Carolina, what is the eviction law? And I did not have enough time to track it down because I'm like, how nice is Denmark, South Carolina? Is it pretty? Is this an ideal place to build McMansions? And is that why they want people out? I don't know. I don't. From the pictures, it looks lovely. So maybe it's worth it to go in and kill all those people and then resell their properties. I don't know. But why else would you do this? Why would you purposely poison people for 10 years?
Well, exactly. And that's kind of all ties it together, right? That we're talking about why did America declare war on less than 3,000 deaths when COVID's killed 250,000, right? Affected so many people. People have lost their job, lost their health insurance, right? That's a huge deal. But why is one more significant than the other? Well, maybe because of two reasons. One is that, a whole bunch of people stood to make a whole bunch of money if the U.S. declared war right, on countries that they said were responsible for 9/11, which turned out it wasn't true because most of the people came from Saudi Arabia, which is a fierce friend of the United States, so that kind of takes care of that information. But the other thing is you can blame brown people for 9/11, right?
Yes.
And that's why it's huge. That's right. We now have a propaganda machine that can go on and on forever. And one thing that we remember through that time in the early 2000s was the fact that the Bush administration understood that they could control the population much more easily by ratcheting up the fear, right? I remember several times the height of awareness going up, right? Because of a quote unquote report of a certain something that was going to happen, and the awareness level or the readiness level going up to was it orange or red level, right?
Yeah.
To get people in fear, right? Turned out it wasn't anything, but how do you keep people angry and mad at brown people? You keep them in constant fear of their own lives, right?
Yep, and that's exactly right. So we had talked a little bit about follow the money. So again, I have to apologize because there was so little time to prepare for this particular episode that following the money, I only came to one stream here that I think is relevant, but I'm going to let you decide on it. So the company that was contracted to deliver this poison to the municipality, which then put it in the drinking water, Berry Plastics. Berry Plastics is part of a global corporation, right? Very, very big company. But Berry Plastics themselves participates in lobbying, as do most corporations, when your democracy has been bought and sold. This is literally fascism. And this began well before Trump, but I digress. So Berry Plastics participated in lobbying activity. And lobbying activity, for those who aren't familiar, is when a group of corporations get together, or any group, right? So if our revolution is essentially a direct action lobbyist group. They're not registered lobbyists, but we, the people, are getting together to lobby for Medicare for all. Corporations do this too, but they do it through paid lobbyists who are supposed to register. Sometimes they don't, and that's illegal. So Berry Plastics is part of, and I'm going to look away from the camera, so I apologize for being rude, but they participate in annual lobbying on behalf of the Chemical and Related Manufacturers Group. So this is a group of like-minded corporations that put their money together, and then they hire professional lobbyists to get the policies enacted that they want, whether it's local, state, federal. And that's the lobbying they do. So this particular group, this Chemical and Related Manufacturer Lobbyist, contracted with a gentleman by the name of Lavon Boyagain. I'm probably not pronouncing that well. It's Boyagian. And
it was a good try, though.
That was my Midwest pronunciation. Boyagain. It's probably something far more elegant than what I'm doing. But so he owns his own consulting firm, Boyagain Consulting. And when you look at the revolving door, he was on a Ways and Means committee. He was actually serving in government. And now he's a lobbyist and using those connections to sell his lobbying ability. One of the ways that he lobbies is he spent like $64,000 trying to woo a group known as the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. So this is at a state and local level. This is where he operates. So again, this was the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. So when you look into the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition, they're actually doing really good things. This is a bunch of mayors and municipal leaders getting together, talking about what works, what challenges they have, all of these sorts of things. But they're focused on transportation. And this is also where this Levon guy, the lobbyist, his background's in transportation. So where's the connection between municipal water supply and portable water and transportation? Other than Berry Plastics and Berry Pharmaceutical, or Berry Corporation. There's also a Berry Plastics. So they work really significantly with transportation on their chemicals. But apparently they're also delivering solutions for municipal water supplies. So in my head, I don't have the facts to back this up, but in my head, I can see how these conversations go, especially when you're spending money to woo these municipalities. And this is pre-COVID. So you get them all together for these conferences and you're talking about this and that. And oh, by the way, oh, you're having what? Here's this company, Berry, who does this. You might want to talk to them and then introduce Berry in their sales sheets. And we're going to have this really nice kickback deal. And, Dave Gutowski, I think when we had him on, and we need to have him on again, was talking about this with internet freedom. When you have Comcast and you look at your local town, village, whatever, they get a cut of your Comcast or AT&T internet bill. Right, so they become pimps for your service provider. I'm pretty sure that something similar is going on with some of these other municipal services too. And it's just a matter of you taking the time. Freedom of Information Act. You are a taxpayer. You own this shit. You can go and say, how are you getting your revenue? I want to see line by line. And in there, you'll see Comcast, AT&T, whatever. And I'm pretty sure when it comes to municipal water supplies, you're also going to see a little bit of a kickback there too. So this is the money trail that I've been following. Who the hell made this decision and why? And Andy, you're brilliant. There's always money involved. Always.
Grass, gas, and ass. Nobody rides for free.
That's like the rules of the road. The rules.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this is the story. And I am going to, so Mr. Sellers, if you're watching this morning, hopefully you are, know that I am going to be relentless in following up on this one. I want to see what your filing is. And I want to make sure that everyone else sees it too, because to me, the action that you're taking, first, it didn't happen in Flint, and it should, but I don't know that there's another Bakari Sellers willing to do this. But since you're willing to do it for your own neighbors, it becomes a roadmap for others. And the rest of us, this is that direct action that I was talking about. Instead of us paying a lobbyist, we are getting together to say enough is enough, and we are taxpayers. We own this system. You work for us. You're supposed to work with us. You're not supposed to kill us, right? Yeah.
It's really sad that you have to say that.
Well, yeah, I don't know when feudalism became fashionable again. I feel like we've been here before, and it didn't work out so well. Right.
Well, and people mistakenly say that Trump is the fascist that we have to get rid of, right? Well, Trump is not the fascist. The oligarchical society that we live is the definition of fascism, right? That's still in place. Biden didn't change anything.
No, and he himself has said that nothing will fundamentally change under his administration, including, being able to poison 3,000 people wantonly. Right? Somebody made a conscious decision here.
And I'm also very disturbed with the fact that everybody thinks that the Biden administration is going to be the savior of everyone in COVID-19. Well, if you're looking at what's happening and why and how that's going to happen, simply standing in front of a camera saying to people, wear your masks, is not going to make a hell of a difference unless absolute fundamental structural change in how you deal with this is going to do that, right? If we're talking about, going into lockdown if you have to, right? Screw the market. We could try to save people, not the stock market, right?
Right.
And providing federal funds for everyone affected so that they don't lose their house, so that we're not talking about a moratorium on rent and payments, talking about getting rid of them so that people don't have to come up with the money at the end of this, or they're still going to lose their homes or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That difference is huge. So unless you're willing to do that, Biden administration, then you're fundamentally not doing anything at all.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with the same person, Pamela, who brought this story to my attention about the drawdown of troops in Afghanistan and how there is a very clear bipartisan effort to stop that. So this is one of those Trump campaign promises that I actually agree with. Absolutely, we need to get out of Afghanistan after 19 and a half years. We need to draw that down. So when we talk about federal spending, 1 month of what we spend in Afghanistan would help millions of people get by through this pandemic in just 1 month, right? So let's trade what we're spending in Afghanistan and give public money to the public. What would that do? But instead, we have this bipartisan coalition wicked pissed that he would have the audacity to draw down troops and get us out of not just Afghanistan and Syria. What? What happened to nationalism? Where did all of that go? So, to your point, it is just this gross mismanagement of our money at a federal and state level. This is why we are in the situation. We have the government that I think, it used to be the phrase, you will get the government that you deserve. I think we've gone well beyond that, right?
Yeah, and it's the regime change machine, right? That's now licking its lips because of the Democrats being back in power, right? With the war hawks and what are they thinking of the ambassador of the UN for Hillary? Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I saw that.
Just shoot us all now.
Right. Third way leads the way. So
the Lincoln Project. Woohoo. Yeah.
We want our money back. So, okay, that's all I have for this morning. I'm gonna keep following up on this story, and I'm waiting for the statement from Representative Clyburn's office, from Lady G's office. Where are they on this? As soon as I get it, you'll get it.
Yeah, we'll either post it to the website and the Facebook page and Twitter and all those social media outlets. And we'll probably do a follow-up, wrap-up type of thing on Friday when we get, back together again. Mother Nature allowing me to do that, unless we get another windstorm, and then who knows what's going to happen.
Right. I figure it was an act of God or, whatever your deity is. So it was just, nope, you're sleeping in. That's how it goes. But all right. So we will be back bright and early on Friday morning. Again, thank you to Pamela for this story. This was amazing. And thank you. So if you have a story or something that you feel like we need to talk about, we need to elevate a little bit, drop us a line. I can be reached on Facebook, Twitter, as can Andy, Progressive Ins 5 on Twitter for Digital Liberation Front. Our Facebook page, we're accessible. Just drop us a line.
That's right. We're everywhere the place.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kerri. And I guess we'll see you on Friday morning. Take care, everybody.
dog. We bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keeping it G. Whoa.